Well, it took ages for it to happen. But when food rationing came in January 1940, it changed our lives forever. The thing was, you see, people started to panic. They were panic shopping and hoarding by then, and it meant not everyone could get the food that they needed. At first, it was bacon, butter and sugar that was rationed. But then, not long after, it was meat, tea, jam, biscuits, cereals, eggs, cheese, milk and canned fruit. About the only thing they didn't ration was fish and chips. Hurrah! I thought, oh, my luck's in. Oh, I do like my fish and chip supper. But the thing is, all the chippies shut. They're only open when they can get their supplies, and that, well, that's once in a blue moon. The thing is, you see, some of us, myself included, have got really bad memories of the food shortages in the Great War, and we're not going to let that happen again. The whole idea is everyone gets a fair share of the food that's available, and only food that can be guaranteed is put onto ration. So now every member of the household is given a ration book like this. Rather embarrassed to say I've got to fill my details on the front of this one yet. And then we register with our local shopkeeper. Coupons inside can only be used at a particular shop because the shopkeeper gets his supplies based on how many people are registered with him. The shopkeeper then stamps your book to show that you've had your share of food for that week. So, what can we get? Well, here's what's left of this week's shop. Nowadays, we can get 2 ounces of cheese. Now, in 1941, we could only get 1 ounce, and in 1942, we could get 8 ounces, so it goes up and down. We can have 4 ounces of bacon or ham. We can have 8 ounces of sugar. We have 1 shilling, 2 pence worth of meat. And then we can have marmalade, like you see in the middle here, that's £2 worth. We can have 2 ounces of butter, 4 ounces of margarine, 2 ounces of lard, which I'm embarrassed to say is in the oven. And the worst part is only 12 ounces of sweets a month. Some foods are affected by the seasons, so milk and eggs are allocated rather than rationed. The idea is you get slightly less than 1 egg per week. How do we do that, you might be asking? Powdered eggs, of course. We are allowed the equivalent of 12 eggs per 8 weeks. They're really useful in cakes and custard, but I'm afraid that dried egg omelette, it's rather an acquired taste. Some foods are not rationed at all, but they're only available when we can get our hands on them, obviously. Fish is one of them. Offal. Ugh. Bread's not rationed, although I have to admit that the national loaf tastes absolutely foul. Fruit and veg aren't rationed neither. And we can all dig our bit to get our own supply of them by digging for victory. More of that in a moment. For me, this war has been an endless round of queuing outside shops, just in case they have something different today, like an extra sausage or a bit more lard. I'll be so glad when this rationing is over. And you know what? Now we've won the war, it'll be very soon, I have no doubt. I'm going to miss all the advice we've been given, though. Things like grow fit, not fat, has helped me enormously. And the BBC programme The Kitchen Front with Gert and Daisy is a fun mix of advice and a good giggle. It's broadcast every morning. I listen to it just before I go shopping. Oh, they've helped me with recipes and ideas. Corned beef fritters, sheep's head soup, fried offal. Can't wait for a proper Sunday roast with all the trimmings. Oh, my mouth's watering. Or a full cooked breakfast. Or, oh, hang about. I said I'd tell you about Dig for Victory, didn't I? I told you a moment ago that I'd tell you all about Dig for Victory. And what better place to do that than my very own Dig for Victory garden. Now, the Dig for Victory campaign encourages all to become vegetable gardeners. So formal gardens, lawns, even sports pitches have all been turned into allotments, large and small, so everyone's got enough veggies to put into their very own Lord Woolton's pie. Now, the reason for this, you see, is that Britain is an island. You know that grey wobbly thing that goes around the edge? Well, that's the sea, you see. See what I did there? Anyway, a lot of our food was brought over the sea in ships In fact, 50% of our meat and 70% of our cereals, in fact 90% of our cereals, come from abroad. But with the warships and their torpedoes off the coast and U-boat blockades, food can no longer reach us from our far off shores, so we're having to produce it for ourselves. The Ministry of Agriculture took control of food production, and they took control of farms that were not pulling their weight. A Plough Now campaign was started, making sure that any grassland was turned into crops, wheats and oats and barley and potatoes to feed the population. The Prime Minister said that we must produce the greatest volume of food of which our fertile land is capable. There's even Dr. Carrot and Potato Pete to encourage the youngsters to grow and cook their very own vegetables. Mr. Churchill didn't just mean the farm though, and in no time at all, herbaceous borders, garden lawns, railway embankments, even the top of Anderson shelters were considered suitable to grow vegetables. Even the begs surrounding the Victoria Memorial at Buckingham Palace have been used to grow peas and runner beans, Brussels sprouts, potatoes. Everyone, from the King himself to the working class of London, are mucking in and helping out. Then there is the Women's Land Army that fights in the fields, for it is in the fields of Britain that the most critical battle of the present war may be fought and won. It had originally been set up in 1917, but was disbanded at the end of the Great War. It reformed in June 1939. At first, women volunteered, but by late 1941, they could also be conscripted. By last year, 1944, there were more than 80,000 women doing a wide variety of jobs on the land. Ploughing, tilling, milking, rat catching. They work in all weathers and conditions, anywhere in the country. So it is. Now, in May 1945, there are approximately 1.5 million allotments producing 10% of this fair country's vegetables. We also keep rabbits for meat and chickens for eggs. Oh, speaking of which, I should go and see if our little Lottie hens laid any eggs for our dinner. Now remember, you keep digging for victory. Whilst we may have victory in Europe, the war is still far from over. Well, thanks for joining me today. Toodaloo.